Laughter slipped through the school hall. Low, quick, meant to be quiet but not careful. A woman stood near the back row of chairs, holding a mop handle with both hands even though the floor was already clean. Her gray uniform blended into the wall behind her. Only her eyes moved, slow, unsure. A parent leaned toward another. "She's still standing," the man whispered. "Did she get lost?" The woman beside him glanced over her shoulder. Her eyes paused on the uniform, on the name tag, Amina Cleaning Staff. "She probably came to clean before the meeting," she said. Her lips curved slightly. Amina heard it. She did not turn around. She shifted the mop gently to the side and folded her hands in front of her. Her fingers were rough, the skin dry. She pressed her thumbs together until they hurt. The principal's voice echoed at the front. "Let's begin." Parents settled into their seats, bags placed down, phones silenced. A few heads turned again, quick looks, curious looks. A teacher walked down the aisle. He stopped when he noticed Amina still standing. "Yes?" he asked softly. Amina took a breath. It caught halfway. "I'm here," she said. Her voice was quiet but steady. "For the parents' meeting." The teacher hesitated just for a second, then nodded. "Oh, please sit." She moved toward the back row. One empty chair waited. The plastic creaked when she touched it. As she sat, a man nearby adjusted his jacket and shifted his chair slightly away. Not enough to be rude, enough to be felt. Amina kept her eyes forward. The principal spoke about grades, about expectations, about discipline. Words floated across the room like they belonged to someone else. Amina's hands rested on her knees, still, too still. A woman in the row ahead turned around halfway. "Excuse me," she said, smiling politely. "You work here, right?" Amina nodded once. "Yes." The woman glanced at the stage, then back at Amina. "So which child are you here for?" The question hung there, soft, sharp. Amina's throat moved. "My son," she said, "Zayan Malik." Silence followed, not the good kind. Someone at the far end of the row let out a small breath that sounded almost like a laugh. Another parent looked down at their notebook, suddenly very interested. The woman turned back around slowly. Her smile faded as if it had never been real. Amina stared straight ahead. Her jaw tightened. Her shoulders stayed lifted, like she was holding something heavy inside. At the side of the hall, a door remained closed, the one that led from the classrooms. Amina's eyes drifted there again, then back to her hands, then to the door. She adjusted the edge of her uniform, smoothed a wrinkle that wasn't there. The principal mentioned parental involvement. Amina nodded without realizing it. A clock ticked loudly on the wall, then footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Slow, careful, a pause. Several parents turned their heads. Amina's breath stopped. The door handle moved. Before it opened, before anyone could see who stood on the other side, Amina lowered her head slightly, like she was bracing herself for disappointment, for pride, for something she could not name yet. If you believe quiet people carry the loudest stories, subscribe and stay, because the next moment will make this room rethink every look it gave her. The door began to open, and every whisper in the hall fell silent. The boy they judged her for was about to step inside, and no one was ready for what he would do next. The door opened slowly, not wide, just enough. A boy stepped inside. He was thin, taller than most boys his age, but not confident about it. His school bag hung from one shoulder. The strap twisted like it had been pulled on too many times. Zayan Malik. His eyes scanned the hall once. Rows of chairs. Parents sitting straight, some holding notebooks, some holding phones. Then his eyes moved to the back. They stopped. Amina felt it before she saw him, that familiar pull in her chest, like someone had called her name without sound. She did not turn around right away. Zayan stood still near the door. His shoes were dusty. One lace was loose. He bent down quickly and tied it, his fingers moving fast, like he did not want anyone to notice him. A teacher whispered something to him and pointed toward an empty chair near the front. Zayan shook his head. He did not speak, just shook his head again. Firm. The teacher frowned slightly. "There's a seat here," he said quietly. Zayan looked past him, toward the back. My mother is there, he said. The word mother landed softly, but it traveled. A few parents turned fully now. The teacher followed Zayon's gaze. His eyes found Amina, the uniform, the name tag. Oh, he said, not rude, just surprised again. Zayon started walking down the aisle. Each step echoed, too loud, too slow. Amina's hands curled into her palms. She finally turned her head. Their eyes met. Zayon smiled just a little. Not wide, but real. Amina's lips trembled. She nodded once, small, careful, like she did not want to embarrass him. He reached the back row and pulled the chair beside her. It scraped the floor. A man nearby sighed softly, annoyed. Zayon ignored it. He sat, straightened his bag under the chair, then looked at his mother again. "You okay?" he whispered. Amina nodded again. "Yes," she said. "Sit properly." He did. The principal continued talking, unaware of the quiet shift that had happened, or maybe aware but choosing not to pause. Zayon listened. His hands folded, his back straight. A woman 2 rows ahead leaned toward her husband. "That's her son," she whispered. The husband shrugged. "Looks normal," he said. Zayon heard it. His jaw tightened, but he stayed quiet. A teacher began calling names for individual discussions. Zayon Malik. The sound of the name moved through the room. Amina flinched just slightly. Zayon stood up immediately. "Yes, sir," he said. His voice was calm, clear. The teacher looked at him, then at Amina. "Your mother can come too," he said. Amina hesitated. Zayon turned to her. "Come," he said softly. She stood, smoothed her uniform again, picked up the folded paper from her lap. As they walked toward the front, eyes followed them, some curious, some uncomfortable. Amina felt every step. At the desk, the teacher smiled politely. "Zayon is impressive," he said, choosing the word carefully. Amina lowered her eyes. "Thank you," she said. The teacher opened the file. "Top of his class," he continued. "Consistent, quiet, very focused." Murmurs rippled through the hall. Amina looked up. Zayon did not smile. He just stood there, hands at his sides, waiting. The teacher hesitated, then added, "There's something else we need to discuss." Zayon's eyes flicked to his mother. Just for a second. Her face tightened. The room leaned in. And whatever that something else was, it did not sound small. The praise had surprised them, but the next words from the teacher would shift the air in the room completely. The teacher closed the file halfway, not fully, like he was deciding how much to say. He cleared his throat. "Zayon," he said, "you took the scholarship assessment last month." A few parents straightened in their chairs. Amina's fingers tightened around the edge of the desk. She had known about the test. She had signed the form with careful letters. She had washed floors late that night and wondered if she had done the right thing. Zayon nodded. "Yes, sir." The teacher glanced at the principal seated nearby, then back at the file. "We usually inform parents privately," he said. "But since you're both here," his voice slowed. "You ranked first." The word first did not land immediately. It hovered. Then whispers broke out, soft, confused. "First. In the whole grade, that test is hard." Amina's breath left her all at once. She did not smile. She did not speak. Her eyes filled, but she blinked quickly like she had trained herself to do. Zayon stayed still. The teacher continued. "Out of 312 students," he said. "Highest score." The principal leaned forward now. "That scholarship," the principal added, "is highly competitive." Parents nodded, some impressed, some suddenly interested. A woman raised her hand slightly. "Excuse me," she said. "That scholarship is for the National Science Academy, right?" The teacher nodded. "Yes." The woman looked back at Amina. Her eyes traveled over the uniform again, slower this time. "And does it cover everything?" she asked. The teacher hesitated. "Tuition," he said, "books, accommodation." "And the rest?" the woman pressed. Silence. Amina felt it before he answered. "Transportation," the teacher said carefully. "Living costs, some additional materials." Amina swallowed. Zayon's eyes dropped to the floor. The principal folded his hands. "These programs are demanding," he said. "They require support at home." A parent near the aisle spoke without raising a hand. "Will he be able to manage?" the man asked. "It's very competitive. Children there have resources." The word sat heavy. Amina shifted her weight. Her shoes squeaked slightly against the floor. She wished they wouldn't. "I clean here," she said quietly. "But I make time." Her voice was steady, but her hands shook. "I wake him every morning," she continued. "I pack his lunch, I help where I can." The man nodded slowly, not convinced, not cruel either. Zayan looked up then. "He doesn't need help with his studies," he said. "I'm fine." A few people smiled at his confidence. The teacher smiled too, briefly. "There's another part," he said. The room settled again. "This scholarship requires an interview," he explained. "In the capital." Amina's heart sank. "The interview panel asks about background," he added. "Family, support system." A parent whispered something. Another nodded. Zayan felt his mother's hand brush against his sleeve. Just for a second, then pull back. "Sir," Zayan said, "when is it?" "Next week," the teacher replied. Amina's mind raced, shifts, buses, costs, time off. The principal watched her carefully. "We understand this may be difficult," he said. Amina nodded. "Yes," she said, "but he will go." Her voice surprised even her. Zayan turned to her. "Ami," he whispered. She looked at him. "We will find a way," she said. "No promise, just truth." The principal closed the file. "We'll discuss the details later," he said. As they walked back to their seats, eyes followed again, but differently now, some curious, some thoughtful, some quiet. Amina sat down slowly. Zayan sat beside her. Neither spoke. Because somewhere between first and interview, the room had begun to see them. But seeing was not the same as believing. And belief, they were about to learn, would be tested very soon. The scholarship had opened a door, but what stood on the other side would demand more than grades ever could. The hall emptied slowly. Chairs scraped. Bags zipped. Conversations resumed, softer now. Different. Amina waited until most parents had left before standing. She picked up the mop from where she had leaned it against the wall. Her fingers wrapped around the handle like it was something familiar. Something safe. Zayan watched her. "You didn't have to stay," he said quietly. "You could have gone home." She shook her head. "I had work," she replied. "And I wanted to hear." He nodded, then hesitated. "Ami," he said, lowering his voice. "The interview," she kept her eyes forward. "We'll talk," she said. They walked out together into the corridor. The sound of their footsteps mixed with the echo of others. Posters lined the walls, achievements, smiling faces, names written in bold letters. Zayan's eyes paused on one. He looked away. Outside, the sun was already leaning toward evening. Parents stood in small groups. Cars waited. Drivers opened doors. Amina stepped aside to let a group pass. She held the mop close to her body. A woman from earlier walked past, then stopped. She turned back. "Your son is very bright," she said. Her voice was careful now. Amina nodded. "Yes." The woman adjusted her bag. "That program, it's expensive," she said, "even with the scholarship." Amina did not answer. The woman sighed lightly. "Well," she said, "children like mine have been preparing for years." She smiled again. Not unkind, not warm. Then she walked away. Zayan's shoulders stiffened. "Don't listen," he said. Amina smiled at him, small. "I didn't," she said. They reached the bus stop. The bench was cold, metal. They sat side by side. The bus was late. Amina took out a small cloth from her pocket and wiped dust off the mop handle. Slow movements, careful. Zayan watched her hands. "How much is the ticket to the capital?" he asked. She paused. "Why?" "I just want to know," he said. She looked at the road. "A lot," she replied. He nodded. "Once I can work," he said, "after school." She turned to him then. "No," she said, firm, "you study." He did not argue, but his jaw tightened. The bus arrived with a sigh. They climbed in. That night Amina stood alone in the empty hall again. The lights were dim, chairs stacked, silence heavy. She mopped the floor slowly. Her thoughts were louder than the room. The interview, the travel, the clothes, the fees they didn't mention. She stopped near the front desk, rested both hands on the mop. For a long moment she stood there, just breathing. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. Thin, worn, inside were notes, folded many times. Money she had saved for years, for emergencies, for sickness, for rent delays. She counted it twice. It was not enough. Her shoulders dropped slightly. She folded the money back carefully and returned it to the bag. At home, Zayan sat at the small table, books open, light flickering. She watched him from the doorway. He looked up. "You're late," he said. She smiled. "Work." He went back to his book. Amina stood there longer than she needed to. Then she walked to the cupboard, opened it. At the back, wrapped in cloth, was a small gold bangle, thin, old, her mother's. She took it out, held it in her palm. The metal felt cold. She closed her fist around it. The next morning she left early. She did not wake Zayan. She did not tell him where she was going. The pawn shop sign flickered as she stepped inside. And somewhere far away, a future waited quietly. The interview demanded money. But the real cost was something Amina had carried for years. Zayan waited by the window. The sky outside had already turned the color it did before night, soft, gray. The streetlight flickered once, then stayed on. He checked the time again. She was late. The rice on the stove had gone cold. He turned the flame off carefully, the way she had taught him, slowly. No noise. He sat back down, opened his book. Read the same line 3 times without understanding it. She was never this late. He stood and walked to the door. Opened it just enough to look out. The corridor was empty, quiet. He closed the door again. Another hour passed. His phone buzzed once. Not her. He sat on the bed now, shoes still on, bag untouched. At the school, the night guard leaned on his chair. Amina's name was still on the duty board, crossed out late. She did not come. At the pawn shop, the man weighed the bangle carefully. His fingers moved without emotion. "This is old," he said. "Yes," Amina replied. "It's thin." "I know." He scribbled a number on a paper and slid it across the counter. Amina looked at it. Her eyes stayed there longer than needed. "It's less than last time," she said quietly. "Gold prices change," he replied. "Take it or leave it," she nodded. "I'll take it." He wrapped the bangle in paper and placed it in a drawer, closed it. The sound felt final. Amina took the money, folded it, put it deep into her bag. Outside, rain began suddenly. Heavy, sharp. She did not have an umbrella. She walked anyway. By the time she reached the bus stop, her uniform clung to her arms, her shoes soaked. The bus was full. She stood the whole way home, holding the pole, watching the lights pass. When she finally reached the building, her legs ached. Her shoulders felt heavy. She climbed the stairs slowly. At the door, she paused. She wiped her face with her sleeve, straightened her uniform, took a breath. Inside, Zayan jumped up. "Amy," he said. She smiled. "I'm here." "You didn't answer," he said. "I couldn't," she replied. "Phone died." He looked at her wet clothes. "Where were you?" She set the bag down. "Work," she said again. He nodded, but his eyes lingered. She changed quickly, came back to the kitchen, heated the rice. They ate quietly. After dinner, Zayan opened his notebook. "About the interview," he said. Amina froze for a second, then continued washing the plate. "Yes, I can wear my school uniform," he said. "I don't need new clothes." She turned off the tap. "That's fine," she said. "And we don't need a hotel," he continued. "We can come back the same day." She nodded. He hesitated. "You don't have to go with me," he said. Her head snapped up. "Yes, I do," she said, soft, certain. He looked at her, searching. She held his gaze. "I will be there," she said. He did not ask again. That night Amina lay awake. The ceiling fan hummed above her. Slow, steady, her wrist felt light, bare. She closed her eyes. In the dark, she pictured the hall, the whispers, the looks. Then she pictured Zayan standing alone in a room full of strangers. Her chest tightened. Some things, she knew, could not be sold. Others had already been. The money was arranged, but the interview would ask for more than either of them expected. They left before sunrise. The street was quiet. Shops shuttered. Dogs asleep near the curb. Amina locked the door softly, like the morning could break if she wasn't careful. Zayan adjusted his bag on his shoulder. "You have everything?" she asked. "Yes," he said. They walked to the bus stop. The bench was damp from last night's rain. They did not sit. The bus arrived late. It always did. Inside, seats were scarce. Amina stood and held the pole. Zayan sat near the window, his knees pulled in. He watched the city wake up, tea stalls opening, newspapers stacked, people rushing with purpose. Amina watched him instead. His collar was neatly pressed, his shoes clean though the soles were thin. She had ironed the uniform twice. He caught her looking. "What?" he asked. "Nothing," she said. "Sit straight." He smiled faintly and did. The capital came into view slowly, taller buildings, wider roads, louder horns. They got off near the institute, a large gate, clean walls, a sign with bold letters. Zayan stopped walking. Amina noticed. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded, once, then again. "Yes." Inside, the waiting area was full. Students sat with their parents, some laughed quietly, some revised notes, some wore suits too big for their shoulders. Amina stood near the wall. She held a file close to her chest. Her uniform felt louder here. A woman beside her glanced over. "Which interview?" she asked. "Scholarship," Amina replied. "Oh," the woman said, then smiled. "Good luck." A man nearby looked at Amina's clothes, then away. A staff member called names. "Zayan Malik." Zayan stood. Amina reached for his sleeve. She stopped herself. "Go," she said. He nodded. At the door he turned back. "You'll wait?" he asked. She nodded. "I'm here." The door closed behind him. Time stretched. Amina sat on the edge of a chair. Her hands folded, unfolded, folded again. She watched other parents whisper encouragement, straighten ties, offer water. She had nothing to offer, only her presence. Minutes passed, then more. A guard walked by, looked at her, then at the floor she was sitting near. "Ma'am," he said, "you can't sit there." She stood immediately. "Sorry," she said. She moved back to the wall. When the door finally opened, Zayan stepped out. His face was calm, too calm. She searched his eyes. "How was it?" she asked. He shrugged. "They asked questions," he said. "That's all." He nodded. They walked out together. On the way back, the bus was crowded again. Someone's elbow pressed into Amina's side. She did not move. Zayan stared at the floor. "They asked about you," he said suddenly. Amina's breath caught. "What did you say?" she asked. He looked up. "I told them the truth," he said. She did not ask more. At home, the day passed slowly. Evening came. Then night. The phone did not ring. Amina cooked, cleaned, waited. Zayan studied, pretended. They did not speak about it again. 3 days later, a letter arrived. Amina held it in her hands for a long moment before opening it. Her fingers shook. Zayan watched from the doorway. She unfolded the paper. Read, stopped. Read again. Her face did not change. "What is it?" Zayan asked. She looked at him. "They want you back," she said, "for a final meeting." His heart sank. "Why?" he asked. She folded the letter slowly. "They didn't say." Outside, thunder rolled far away, and somewhere between hope and fear, another door waited. The interview was over, but the final meeting would ask a question neither of them had prepared to answer. The meeting was scheduled for noon. Not early, not late, right in the middle of the day when time felt heavier. They arrived early anyway. The same building, the same gate, but this time fewer people waited inside. Only a handful of students, a few parents. The air felt tighter. Amina stood near the wall again. Her hands rested in front of her. Empty wrists, clean uniform. Zayan sat beside her. His foot tapped lightly against the floor. He stopped it when he noticed. A door opened. A staff member stepped out. "Zayan Malik," she called. They both stood. "This time," the woman said, looking at Amina, "we'd like the parent to come in as well." Amina nodded. "Once." Inside, the room was smaller than expected. A long table, 3 panel members, papers neatly stacked, glasses of water untouched. One of them smiled. "Please sit." They did. Zayan sat straight. Amina sat with her back firm, hands folded tightly in her lap. The man in the center spoke first. "Zayan," he said, "your academic performance speaks for itself." Zayan nodded. "We were impressed," the woman on the right added. "Very impressed." Amina kept her eyes lowered. The man on the left leaned forward. "But scholarships are not only about marks," he said. "They're about endurance." He paused. "Support." Silence followed. Then the woman turned to Amina. "Can you tell us about your work?" she asked gently. Amina looked up. "I clean," she said, "at his school." The woman nodded. "How many hours a day?" "8," Amina replied. "Sometimes more." "And your income?" the man asked. Amina hesitated just a breath. She told them. No one reacted, but the silence shifted. The man in the center folded his hands. "This program," he said, "is demanding, long hours, pressure." He looked at Zayan. "You will be away from home," Zayan nodded. Then the man looked back at Amina. "Can you support him emotionally?" he asked. Amina blinked. "Yes," she said. "How?" the woman asked. Amina opened her mouth, closed it, then spoke. "I listen," she said. "I wake up when he studies late. I wait." The woman smiled faintly. The man on the left glanced at a paper. "Zayan mentioned something during his interview," he said. "About you." Amina's chest tightened. "What did he say?" she asked softly. The man looked at Zayan. "Would you like to tell us again?" he asked. Zayan's hands clenched on his knees. He looked at his mother, then at the panel. "I said," he began, "that she never missed a day of work." Amina frowned slightly. "Even when she was sick," Zayan continued. "Even when she was tired." He swallowed. "She used to clean classrooms at night," he said, "and sit outside mine while I studied." Amina's eyes filled. She looked down quickly. The room was quiet. The man in the center leaned back. "Mrs. Malik," he said, "we have one concern." Amina lifted her head. "The costs that are not covered," he said. "The travel, the materials, emergencies." He paused. "What will you do when you can't afford them?" The question stayed there. Amina did not answer immediately. She looked at Zayan, then back at them. "I will find a way," she said. The man nodded slowly. "Thank you," he said. "That will be all." They stood, walked out. In the corridor, Zayan exhaled deeply. "That was it?" he asked. Amina nodded. They walked away, not knowing if they had just passed something, or failed it quietly. The question was simple, but the answer would be tested in front of everyone, sooner than either of them expected. The school hall smelled of disinfectant and dust. Amina pushed the mop slowly across the floor, back and forth, straight lines, the way she always did it, the way that helped her think less. Her phone was deep in her bag, silent. She checked it only during breaks. She had learned not to hope too loudly. A group of students passed by, laughing. Their voices echoed, then faded. She wrung the mop once, hard. At the far end of the hall, the principal stood talking to a teacher. He glanced at Amina, looked away, then looked again. He stepped closer. "Amina," he said. She stopped immediately. "Yes, sir." "There's a call for you," he said. "In the office." Her heart skipped. She wiped her hands on her uniform and followed him. Each step felt slower than the last. Inside the office, the phone sat on the desk, still ringing. She stared at it for a second too long, then picked it up. "Hello," she said. "Amina Malik," a voice asked. "Yes, this is from the National Science Academy." Her knees weakened slightly. She held the edge of the desk. "Yes," she said again. "We've made a decision regarding Zayan." The office felt very quiet. "We'd like to inform you that he has been selected." Amina closed her eyes, not to cry, just to breathe. "Thank you," she whispered. "There are conditions," the voice continued. Amina opened her eyes. "The scholarship will begin next month. Boarding will be provided." She nodded even though they could not see her. "There are additional expenses," the voice said. "Travel, uniforms, equipment." "I understand," Amina said. "We'll send the details," the voice added. "Congratulations." The line went dead. Amina stood there. The principal watched her carefully. "Well?" he asked. She nodded. "He got it," she said. The principal smiled. "Genuine. That's wonderful," he said. She smiled back, small, tired. When she returned to the hall, her mop waited where she had left it. She picked it up again. Back and forth, straight lines. At lunch break, she sat on the steps outside. She dialed Zayan's number. He answered on the first ring. "Amy, he got the scholarship," she said. There was silence, then a sharp breath. "Really?" he asked. "Yes," he laughed, once, short. "I knew it," he said, then quieter. "I knew it," she smiled. "When do I come home?" he asked. "Soon," she said. That evening, Zayan did not study. He sat on the floor and talked about the hostel, about the labs, about the people he might meet. Amina listened. She nodded, smiled, asked small questions. Later that night, after he slept, she opened her bag, took out the envelope, counted again, still not enough. She folded the money carefully. The next day, the school announced Zayon's achievement during assembly. Students clapped, teachers smiled. Amina stood at the back, holding a bucket. A parent from before nodded at her. "Your son did well," she said. Amina nodded back. "Yes." The clapping ended. Life moved on, but the bills did not, and the cost of saying yes was about to be asked publicly. Rehook, the scholarship was won, but soon everyone would learn what it truly cost her to let him accept it. The letter arrived 3 days later, thick envelope, official seal, heavy paper. Amina opened it at the kitchen table while the kettle boiled. Zayon stood behind her, leaning slightly to see. She read slowly, once, then again. Her face stayed calm. Zayon smiled. "They gave a list?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "What kind of list?" She folded the paper neatly. "Things you'll need." He reached for it. She held it just out of reach. "I'll read it later," she said. He frowned just a little but nodded. That night when he slept, Amina read the list again. Uniform fee, lab equipment, initial travel cost, emergency deposit. She added the numbers in her head, then on paper, then again. The total sat quietly at the bottom of the page. She leaned back in her chair. The wood creaked. Her eyes moved to the cupboard, empty space where the bangle had been. The next morning she picked up an extra shift, then another. She stayed late, came home after dark, left before sunrise. Zayon noticed. "You don't have to work so much," he said one evening. She smiled. "It's fine," she said. "I like staying busy." He watched her hands. They moved slower now. At school, whispers followed her again, different ones. "That's the boy who got the scholarship. His mother cleans here. She must be proud, proud." The word felt strange in her chest. One afternoon, a teacher stopped her near the stairs. "Amina," she said, "there's a small function next week." Amina looked up. "The academy is sending representatives," the teacher continued. "They'd like to introduce the selected students publicly." Amina nodded. "Parents are expected to attend," the teacher added. Amina's mouth went dry. "Yes," she said. The day before the function, Zayon laid out his uniform carefully. "I'll speak if they ask me," he said. "I practiced." Amina watched him. "You don't have to say much," she replied. He looked at her. "I want to," he said. She nodded. That night she counted the money again, still short. She closed the envelope and placed it under her pillow, like that might help. The morning of the function, she stood in front of the mirror longer than usual, smoothed her uniform, cleaned her shoes with a damp cloth. She hesitated, then took the name tag off. Zayon noticed. "Why?" he asked. She shrugged. "I don't need it today," she said. The school hall was full again, cleaner than before, decorated. Parents sat in the front rows. Teachers stood to the side. Amina took her place at the back. Zayon sat with the selected students, straight-backed. Quiet. When his name was announced, applause filled the hall. He walked onto the stage. Amina's hands clasped together. The representative spoke about opportunity, about excellence, about potential. Then he paused. "There is one more thing," he said. "A special mention." He looked at Zayon. "This student," he continued, "comes from a background that reminds us why these programs exist." The room leaned forward. "We'd like his parent to join him on stage." Amina froze. Zayon looked toward the back, found her. Everyone did. She stood slowly, and with every step toward the stage, the weight she had been carrying for years began to surface. They had asked her to step forward, but they had no idea what she was about to reveal. Amina took one step forward, then another. The hall was silent now, not the polite kind, the heavy kind. Every eye followed her, from the back row, past the chairs, toward the stage. Her shoes made a soft sound on the floor, too soft. Too loud. She kept her head level, her hands at her sides, empty wrists visible. Zayon stood on the stage, waiting, his face calm but his eyes searched hers. She climbed the steps slowly. One hand touched the railing just for balance. The representative stepped aside to make room for her. "Please," he said gently. She stood next to her son. The lights were bright, warmer than she expected. She blinked once, then adjusted. The principal smiled at her. The same polite smile he gave donors and guests. The representative looked at her uniform, then at Zayon. We wanted to honor the parents, he said, addressing the room. Those who support these children in ways that aren't always visible. A few heads nodded. Amina listened quietly. This scholarship, he continued, is meant to remove barriers. He paused. But sometimes barriers don't disappear. They're carried. A murmur moved through the hall. The representative turned to Amina. Would you like to say a few words? He asked. The microphone was held out toward her. She stared at it. Her throat tightened. Zayan looked at her, not urging. Just present, she shook her head slightly. I'm not good with words, she said softly. The representative smiled. That's all right, he said. Just whatever you'd like. Amina took the microphone. It felt heavier than it looked. She held it with both hands. The hall waited. I cleaned this school, she said. Her voice carried, clearer than she expected. I cleaned the floors, the classrooms, the toilets. A few parents shifted in their seats. I come early, she continued. I leave late, she paused, took a breath. My son studies here, she said. He sits in those rooms after I clean them. Zayan's jaw tightened. I didn't know how to help him with books, she said. So I helped by making time. Silence. I waited, she said. Outside his classroom, outside our room at night. She stopped. Her fingers tightened around the microphone. I sold things, she added, quiet, almost to herself. The word sold stirred something. She did not explain. She looked down at her hands, then up again. I don't know big words, she said, but I know effort. Her voice wavered slightly. Zayan reached out and held her wrist. Gently, just enough. She steadied. That's all, she said. She tried to hand the microphone back. The representative did not take it immediately. He looked at her, then at the panel seated to the side. There is something else, he said. The hall leaned in again. During the interview, he continued, Zayan mentioned something we didn't understand at first. Zayan looked up sharply. Amina's heart skipped. He said, the representative read from a paper, that his mother gave up something she had been carrying since before he was born. The room was still. The representative looked at Amina. Would you like us to share that? He asked. Amina closed her eyes for a brief moment, then nodded. Yes, she said, and in that single word something long hidden began to rise to the surface. They were about to learn what she gave up and why she never spoke of it. The representative unfolded a second paper. The sound was soft, sharp in the quiet. During the interview, he said, we ask students what they've sacrificed. He looked at Zayan. Most talk about time, comfort, sleep. Zayan stood very still. But Zayan spoke about his mother, the man continued, and something she never replaced. Amina's grip on the microphone loosened. Her fingers felt light. She owned a small piece of gold, the representative said, a family heirloom. A murmur rippled through the hall. She sold it, he went on, to pay for the travel and preparation for this scholarship. The room shifted. Some parents looked down, others leaned back. A few glanced at Amina's empty wrist. She did not mention this herself, the representative added. We learned it from Zayan. All eyes turned to the boy. Zayan swallowed. She never told me at first, he said quietly. I noticed later. His voice did not shake, but his hands did. It was my grandmother's, he continued. She kept it wrapped in cloth. She said it was for emergencies. He paused. I was the emergency. The words landed gently and stayed. Amina closed her eyes. For a moment the hall disappeared. There was only the small kitchen, the cupboard, the empty space. I didn't want anyone to know, Amina said softly. It wasn't important. A woman in the front row wiped her eyes, quickly, like she didn't want to be seen. The principal lowered his head. The representative took a breath. There's more, he said. Amina's eyes opened. The academy has a fund, he explained, for cases like this. He looked at her directly. We would like to cover the remaining costs, he said, fully. A gasp moved through the room. Zayan's head snapped up. What? He whispered. Travel. Materials, emergency expenses, the representative said, all of it. Amina stared at him. No, she said immediately. That's not. The man raised a hand gently. This is not charity, he said. This is respect. Silence followed. We almost missed this, he continued, because effort like yours doesn't come with receipts. Amina's shoulders trembled. Zayon stepped closer to her. The representative smiled. "We would also like," he said, "to recognize Amina Malik." He turned to the principal. "If you'll allow it." The principal stood. "Of course," he said. The representative faced the hall again. "She cleaned these floors," he said, "so her son could walk further." No one laughed. No one whispered. They clapped, slowly at first, then louder. Amina stood frozen. Zayon reached for her hand, held it tightly. She looked out at the room, the same chairs. But the faces were different now. Some things once named could not be unseen. The applause was loud, but what happened after would change her life in a quieter way. The applause faded slowly. Not all at once. It thinned out, like rain easing into mist. Amina stood on the stage longer than she needed to. The microphone was gone now. Her hands felt empty again, lighter, unsteady. Zayon squeezed her hand. "We can go," he whispered. She nodded. As they stepped down, people stood aside to make space. Not because they were told to, because they wanted to. A woman reached out and touched Amina's arm lightly. "You raised him well," she said. Amina nodded. She did not trust her voice. Another parent smiled. No words this time, just a look that stayed. At the back of the hall, the mop stood where she had left it earlier, leaning against the wall, quiet. She walked past it. For the first time, she did not feel the urge to reach for it. Outside, the afternoon sun rested low. The air felt softer. They walked in silence toward the gate. Zayon finally spoke. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. Amina stopped. She looked at him. "Because it wasn't your burden," she said. He looked down. "It was my dream," he said. She nodded. "That's why," she replied. They waited at the bus stop. The same bench, the same road, but everything felt different. Amina sat. Zayon stood beside her. A man approached hesitantly, one of the parents from earlier. "Excuse me," he said. "I wanted to say I was wrong." Amina looked up. He did not try to explain. He did not smile. "I judged," he said. "I shouldn't have," she nodded once. "That's all right," she said, and she meant it. At school the next day, things moved quietly. No announcements, no speeches, just small changes. A teacher held a door open for her. A student picked up a bucket she dropped. The principal stopped by while she cleaned a classroom. "Amina," he said, "if you ever need time off for visits." She nodded. "Thank you." He hesitated. "And we'd like to update your employment file," he added. "Your hours," she looked at him. "Yes." "Reduced," he said. "Same pay." She stared at him. "For Zayon," he added, "so you can be there." Her eyes filled. She bowed her head slightly. "Thank you," she said. At home, Zayon packed his bag slowly, carefully. Amina folded clothes beside him, counted them twice. She placed a small envelope into his bag. "What's that?" he asked. "Bus money," she said. He nodded. That night she sat alone on the bed, the room quiet. She opened the cupboard, reached into the back. The space was still empty. She closed it gently. Not everything comes back, she knew, but some things move forward. The next morning they stood at the station. The train waited. Zayon hugged her, longer than usual. "I'll call," he said. She nodded. "I'll wait," she replied. As the train pulled away, Amina stood still, watching, not lonely, just proud. She thought this was the end of her role. But the world had one more quiet return to make. The school hall was full once more. Not for a meeting, not for announcements, it was quieter than usual. Chairs arranged neatly. A small banner near the stage, simple letters, nothing flashy. Amina stood near the door. She was not in her uniform today. She wore a plain blue dress, ironed carefully, sleeves long enough to cover her arms. Her shoes were still the same. She held her hands together, empty wrists still visible. A teacher approached. "You can sit in the front row," she said kindly. Amina hesitated, then nodded. She walked slowly toward the front, past the same chairs, the same rows. This time no one shifted away. They made space. The principal stepped onto the stage. "We're here today," he said, "to welcome someone back." Amina's heart tightened. She had not been told much, only that she was needed. The side door opened. Zayon walked in, older, taller, his hair cut neatly, his uniform replaced by a simple jacket. His eyes searched the room. They found her. He smiled. The hall clapped, soft, Warm, he stepped onto the stage. Zayon has returned for a short visit, the principal said. To speak to the students. Zayon stood at the microphone. He took a breath. When I sat here, he began, I used to look at the floor. A few students smiled. I thought people saw my marks, he continued. But they saw my background first. Amina lowered her head. Zayon glanced at her. My mother cleaned this hall, he said, so I could sit in it. The words moved gently through the room. She never asked for attention, he continued. She asked for time. He paused. When I left, he said, I thought I was walking alone. He looked at his mother again. I wasn't. The students clapped. Zayon stepped back. The principal turned to Amina. Would you join him? He asked. She stood. This time her steps were steady. Zayon moved aside to make space. The principal held out a small box. We'd like to give this back, he said. Amina frowned slightly. He opened it. Inside lay a thin gold bangle. Her breath caught. It was located, the principal said. Recovered. Amina stared. The room watched. She did not reach for it immediately. Zayon looked at her. She finally extended her hand. The gold felt warm. She slid it onto her wrist. It fit perfectly. The hall stood, not loudly, not suddenly, but together. Amina looked out at them. She did not smile wide, she did not cry, she just stood there, whole. She thought the story had closed, but the last chapter would come quietly at home. That evening the house felt different, not bigger, not brighter, just quieter in a new way. Amina placed her keys on the table. The sound was small, familiar. She slipped off her shoes and lined them neatly near the wall. Her wrist caught the light as she reached for the switch. The bangle rested there, thin, real. She paused, looked at it again, then turned on the light. Zayon stood in the doorway of the room. His bag rested on the floor, half open. You didn't have to come back so soon, she said. He shrugged lightly. I wanted to, he replied. She nodded. In the kitchen, she set water to boil, 2 cups on the counter. The same ones they had always used. She poured the tea carefully. Zayon sat at the table, watched her. You look tired, he said. She smiled. I always look tired, she replied. He smiled back. They drank in silence. Outside, a car passed. Someone laughed somewhere down the street. Life moved as it always did. After a while, Zayon spoke. They ask about you there, he said. She looked up. What do you tell them? She asked. The truth, he replied. She nodded. Good, he hesitated. I used to feel small, he said. When they talked about parents, jobs, Amina listened. I don't anymore, he added. She reached across the table and touched his hand briefly. Neither do I, she said. Later, he went to his room to sleep. Amina stayed back, cleaned the cups, wiped the table, slow movements, no rush. She opened the cupboard again. This time, the empty space felt different. She placed the bangles cloth back where it belonged. She sat on the bed. The ceiling fan hummed, the same sound as always. She thought of the hall, the whispers, the silence, the applause. She thought of the mop, the bucket, the early mornings. She thought of waiting. She lay down, closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she did not set an alarm. In the morning, she woke naturally. Sunlight touched the wall. She dressed slowly. As she stepped outside, she passed the school gate. She did not go in. She kept walking. At the bus stop, she sat. Waited, not for a bus, just for the day to begin. Some stories end with noise. Hers ended with breath, with space, with the quiet understanding that kindness does not announce itself. It shows up and stays. The school hall stayed empty most days. Dust settled where chairs once stood. The banner was gone, the stage bare again. Life did not pause for what happened there, but some things lingered. Amina passed the school gate every morning now. She walked a different route, one that took her past a small park than the bus stop. She still woke early, still packed lunches, still waited. Only now the waiting felt lighter. At the park, children played before school, shoes untied, bags too big for their backs. Amina sat on the bench and watched them for a few minutes each day. She liked the sound of morning. At home, Zayon called every night, sometimes tired, sometimes excited, sometimes quiet. She listened. That's enough, she would say gently when he talked too fast. Eat first. He always laughed at that. In the school, another cleaning lady took Amina's place. Younger, nervous, always apologizing. One afternoon, a parent spoke sharply to her. Amina was there, visiting, paperwork. She stopped. "It's okay," Amina said softly to the girl. "Take your time." The girl looked at her, relieved. "Thank you," she whispered. The world did not change overnight. People still judged, still whispered, still looked twice. But sometimes they paused. At the academy, Zayan stood in a long hallway filled with glass cases. Trophies, names, faces. He stopped at one, not his, just a reflection. He adjusted his collar, stood straighter. At home, Amina opened the window in the evening and let air in. The curtains moved slowly. Calm. She touched the bangle on her wrist sometimes without realizing it, not to remember what she lost, but what stayed. One day, a letter arrived, handwritten from a student from the school. It said only this: "My mother cleans houses. I want to study like your son. Thank you for standing there." Amina read it twice, then folded it carefully, placed it in the cupboard, not hidden, just kept. That night she sat at the table and waited for the phone to ring. When it did, she smiled before answering. "Yes," she said. "I'm here." Outside, the city moved, cars passed, lights flickered on. Somewhere a hall stood quiet, but the echo remained. Not of applause, of footsteps, walking forward, unnoticed, unannounced, strong. The house learned her rhythm again, morning light on the wall, the kettle's soft whistle, the chair pulled back just enough to sit. Amina moved through the day without hurrying. She still cleaned, still worked, just in different places now. Offices, stairwells, small spaces where people passed her without looking. She did not mind. She had learned the weight of being unseen and the strength in it. On Sundays, she washed clothes by the window, folded them carefully, each piece placed with intention. She hummed sometimes, not a song, just sound. The bangle caught the light as her hands moved. Zayan came home once a month, each visit shorter than the last, not because he wanted to leave, because life was pulling him forward. He brought books, stories, new words. She listened. One evening, he stood in the doorway of the kitchen and watched her cook. "You don't have to work so much now," he said. She stirred slowly. "I know," she replied. "Then why do you?" he asked. She thought for a moment. "Because I can," she said. He nodded. He understood. At the school, new parents arrived every year. New uniforms, new worries. The cleaning lady learned the hall the way Amina once had, which tiles creaked, which corners collected dust. One afternoon, she sat alone at the back during a meeting, standing, unsure. Amina saw her from the doorway. She did not interrupt, did not draw attention. She simply walked over and placed a chair beside her. The girl looked up. Amina nodded once. "Sit." The girl did. Nothing more was said. At night, Amina sometimes dreamed of the hall, not the stage, not the applause, just the back row, the chair, the moment before everything changed. She woke calmly. Some mornings she walked past the pawn shop. The sign still flickered. People still went in with small bundles, left lighter. She did not stop. What she had lost was no longer there. What she gained did not live in drawers. Years passed. Zayan's voice deepened. His pauses grew longer, his questions more careful. One night he said, "They asked me who inspired me." Amina smiled into the phone. "And?" she asked. "I told them about a woman," he said, "who cleaned floors and made space." She closed her eyes. "That's enough," she said softly. When the call ended, she sat in the quiet. The city breathed outside. Somewhere a school bell rang. Another day beginning for someone else. Amina stood, turned off the light and walked toward the window. She did not look back, not because there was nothing there, but because everything she needed had already moved forward.